Good evening, happy Monday, and if you're wondering why I haven't been posting for a while, I've been slowly but surely uncovering some new material that I have been researching for the past month. This is called, or these are called emulators, and they work with all kinds of game consoles. I have two particular game consoles that I use these for, and needless to say, I owned both consoles at one time. They are the NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, and the Game Boy. And what you can do is, you could go onto a website. I'll show that site to you. And it is I think it's emulators.net. I'll pull it up in a second. We'll get it right here. It is I have it bookmarked. That's why I couldn't think of it straightforward, because it is right here. Emulatorgames.net. That's what it is. And then you type, but before you can even do that, you have to get the emulator itself. And to do that, you gotta click over here and click on the emulator that you want to get. The one I have is FCEUX. It's under this one, under this over here, right here. FCEUX. This one right here. That's the one that I got. I downloaded this, and then I placed it in the folder. Before I even did that, I placed a folder in here that I named NES Emulators. And that's where all the stuff that I use for this emulator is stored. Now, you start with just only these things right here, like anything like these here. You start with, and this is also you start with here. All the rest further down, you get separately, and you cannot get until you actually have the emulator. Well, you can get it, but it won't work. It warns you that you have to have an emulator installed. So that's what I did. And then once you have the emulator installed, in my case FCEUX, you first click on it to load it up, and then you're brought to this screen. Now, bear with me here. It doesn't, when you first load the program, it doesn't start out full screen like that. It starts out with a little box, but I want to be able to see there, so I just put it full screen. That's why you see it like that. Then you have two options. You could I'll minimize the I'll restore this, as it's called. It starts about actually about a third of this, but what you can do, you can drag the file into this box. It usually goes just to about maybe here. Or what you could do is you can actually, here's what I do. That's why I have this. That's why I have it like this. You hit the open button, and then double click on the one. Let me move this over again. You double click on the game you want to play, and it'll load right up. in my last video, I actually demonstrated that. I'm not going to do it now because the volume I have will actually distort my voice. But in that case, it will play automatically. And then you also have to configure. Here's another thing I learned. You have to configure the game as the buttons that you want to use as each button on the controller. That is the control pad, up, down, left, right, select, start, B and A. And if you want to go turbo B and A, although I don't do that. I don't do those two buttons. All I do are just the control pad, select, start, and B and A. And to make things simple for me, since I was so new at this, I actually that site that I showed you before, emulators.net and emulatorgames.net, actually had it when I was before I even did that for the previous 3 weeks. I was actually playing the game online, and it actually I had to look up what the buttons were assigned online, and I learned this: A was the A key on a keyboard is the X key. The B button is the Z key right next to it. And the arrow keys constitute the represent the control pad. And the select button is represented by the shift key. The start button is represented by the enter key. And to make things simple, I actually mimicked that when I configured the controller. I had to make a few changes, but not many. Because I think, from what I can remember, I think the arrow keys were already configured. I just had to redo B and A and select and start. But everything was working there. I mean, that's the simplest thing to do. Anyway, and so that's how I worked that problem out. And the next thing I learned was, or I was wondering is, now when I was younger, I also used a product called the Game Genie. Here you have codes that come out of a book that I had, and they range from 6 to 8 letters, and they show up on a screen that you start with. Now, I was wondering, how the heck do I get that screen? In fact, when I looked it up on FCEUX, the version that the guy was using made it look kind of easy, but it wasn't working for me because he was using one that was older. I think because mine was more updated, it had more into it because right in this area here, let me close this off here. In this configure button, I think it under input, I think it was. That was where I can configure the controller. That's how you configure the controller. But once you start playing, you can actually go. I think it might be under tools, but it's under cheats. Yeah, but that doesn't appear until after you start playing the game. So once you start playing the game, you go up there and go cheats. Then you see a window that shows the Game Genie. It's a small window, but here's the advantage. On that screen, that appeared that I couldn't quite retrieve limits you to 3 codes per session. You can only do 3 cheat codes at a time. Here, you can do as many as you want. I thought I would. Now, some of the codes, a handful of the codes that I tried, did not work. Just a couple of them did not work. I thought I was done. I thought it's because I had maxed out by using the same 3 codes I did for Mario 3. But that's not the case. You can do as many as you want. In fact, just a couple of hours ago, I added a 4th code to my stash of Mario 3 codes. Stash might be the wrong word for that, but the collection of codes that I use for Mario 3. And it actually worked. I needed this code because I was having trouble with Mario jumping, and so I used the Mega Jump, and lo and behold, the code worked. In addition to the other codes I was using were the ones for infinite lives, starting on World 2, and starting and staying as the Raccoon Mario, meaning if you run into an enemy, you don't fall back to the regular Mario. Instead, it stays right there. The only way you can die is if you fall into a pit. But I added a 4th code today that actually allows you to super jump, because I was having so much trouble with that, with getting onto that high bar. It's kind of like a monkey bar kind of thing in that first world in World 2. I mean, I was having so much trouble with it. So I added that, and lo and behold, I was flying through the air, figuratively and literally. And so I did that, and that settled that score there. So that saved me there. I can get almost all the way through the second world. And why the second world? Because that's the one where I was having the most success. I'm trying to get some notes. That's why I was having the most success, and when I was younger. And actually, that was the code that I'd memorized, even though that entire book that I had that has all these codes, that stash of codes is actually posted on the internet. And this site, I will show you that one here, that it is. In fact, I just bookmarked it too. GameGenie.com. There it is. GameGenie.com. You get all these codes here. I know it's kind of. I'll use my magnifier so you can see it. There it is. There's here all these games. I have some of these. I have some of these. Some of my. I have owned, some I haven't. But anyway, that is where that works there. And that is your NES emulator. Now, for the Game Boy emulator, I had to find a different emulator. And the emulator I set on there is, let me show you that one. That is it's TGB Dual. And you see the games I don't have quite as many games as I have on the on the NES, even though excuse me, there are some that I excuse me, I had to clear my throat. I had a frog down my throat. Even though some of those, there are some games that I have that some games I have that don't have that aren't even listed here. Like I own Wheel of Fortune for the Game Boy, and it's not there. It's not there. I'm sorry. I just had to clear my. I don't know what's back there. Anyway, I had to clear my. I had to like, and in fact, for here's where one of those codes that didn't work comes in. I was trying to get a code for the Jeopardy game, and it wasn't there. I was trying to download the Jeopardy game, it wasn't there. Two of them weren't. Only for the sports Jeopardy and for the and obviously Who Wants to Be a Millionaire second edition. That's the one you see up there, and of course Tetris you see as well, and Quicks. And I have Quicks for the NES and for the Game Boy. I never owned it for the NES, but I did own it for the Game Boy. I think I sort of inherited it because it was in my box as when I switched systems, someone left it. I think someone left it there in the cartridge, and I just and it was hard for me at first, but I kind of fell into it, and now I'm not really a pro at it, but it's getting but I was playing well with it, and also in that I just over the weekend that just passed, I played it for the NES for the very first time, and I realized that the NES version is slightly different than the Game Boy version in that the what's called the threshold amount, the amount that you have to cover the screen with in order to pass the level, is different in the NES version than in the Game Boy version. In the Game Boy version, you have to cover 3/4 of the entire playing field in order to advance without getting hit 3 times by quicks or one of those little mousy things. I don't know what they're called, but those things that climb across your at first they fall across the border of your screen, but once you start drawing part of the once you start drawing part of the playing field where quicks cannot go, he will go across what you do. So if you start at the bottom, take a left, and then start at the bottom, go up and take a left, you can go. That little mousy thing can go up and to the left, and if he runs into your marker, you lose a life. But in the NES version, that threshold is 65%. You only have to cover just under 2/3 of the screen or of the playing field in order to advance. As opposed to 3/4. I thought that was interesting. And so I have that game there, and I have the golf game in there. That's I've had some interesting shots there. I actually had a double eagle on in that game when I was younger, and on that same hole just over the weekend, I had an eagle that I chipped in. I mean, I've had that number 8 may be a tough hole, a tough par 5, but I hit a 3-wood off the tee and a 4-iron into the cup, and there's a lot of bushes in that hole. That's what makes it so hard. They and I assessed this morning. I think the back 9 is is a lot tougher than the front 9, especially 17. 17, I had a time with earlier today. I took a 14 on it. But last night, I had an interesting. I mean, everything I had was going right. It really depends on the wind that you have, and everything was going my way that round. I had a 7 over 79 that round last night. I mean, I had an eagle that game, and on that number 8, I had a birdie in that round. I did have at least 4 birdies in the round I was playing today, but that was destroyed by that 14 I had to take. Because the wind speed is drawn at random. I don't know how they randomize it, but it's pulled out by the computer, I guess. Anyway, but that's how that works. And anyway, but I've owned a couple of those games. Like I was playing golf today. I was playing like spot. I never I played before, but I wasn't the one that owned it. I borrowed it from a friend for an extended period of time because it was really fun to play. Wheel of Fortune Family Edition. I never owned it as a child, but that's because the toy store that is in my hometown was sold out of it at the time I was looking for it. Here, I just downloaded it. It's played the same as Wheel of Fortune Junior, and Wheel of Fortune Junior. Wheel of Fortune Family, and well, that is Wheel of Fortune Family. Wheel of Fortune starring Vanna White is slightly different, but it's made by the same company. And same thing with Jeopardy 25th, and Jeopardy Junior. I never owned Jeopardy 25th as a child, but I played it within the last month, and I owned, neither did I own Jeopardy, the regular Jeopardy, as a child either. But I played that the last month as well, but I have owned Jeopardy Junior Edition. That one is really easy, I guess, because it's for younger people. Anyway, and of course, Super Jeopardy is made by the same. Again, it's made by the same company, but the graphics are a little bit different. It's a lot more. It's kind of fun to play. The dollar values are enhanced to 200 to 1,000 in the Jeopardy round, to 500 to 2,500 points in the Double Jeopardy round. Just as it was in that, I think that was part of a tournament that played out in 1990. It aired only once a week, and it was one, and I never even saw an episode, but I played it. It was a 4-player game in the quarterfinals, but once you get to the semis, it's only a 3-player game. And then you get if you want to play it online, if you want to play it in the system, once the game ends, the winner receives a code, a 3-digit code, and when you log on, you click and you want to play the semifinals. It lets you enter the code that you were given to play this round. You enter that code, and that's how you enter the game. Anyway, that's kind of fun there too. And also, I have another game I have is pinball. That was when I was trying to get up to 9 balls for, but I couldn't. That for some reason those codes didn't work. And so I have that code there, and I've got that code, that game there. I mean, I've got quite a few games in here. Let me pull the whole stash up. Here they are right here. I've got Monopoly, Quicks, RBI Baseball. And here's another one that I own one version of, but not the full but not all these. I own the first version, but it only has 10 teams. The other ones, I never got them, but they came out a little bit later, obviously, versions 2 and 3. Spot, I mentioned that I never actually owned, but I've played before as a friend of mine owned it. Tetris I've played before. That's really kind of fun. There's that Wheel of Fortune feature kind of one, and the other 3 wheels. Killing Few, Hollywood Squares, all the Jeopardies, and there's the list of games that I own there. Anyway, thanks for being with me. That's what I have here. Hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Happy gaming, everyone.